What if the smallest choices in your day could transform your entire life? What if making your bed, facing your fears, and never quitting were the keys to changing not just your world, but the world around you? Welcome to MindSpark Summaries, the channel where big ideas meet real life. Here, we dive deep into the world's most impactful books, unpacking powerful lessons and turning them into practical wisdom you can use today. If you're ready to spark your mind, fuel your growth, and take control of your story, you're in the right place. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Start your day with a task completed. There is something strangely powerful about beginnings. Every morning, when the alarm rings and the world is still quiet, we are given a choice. We can rise and step into the day with purpose, or we can stumble forward, half awake, carrying yesterday's weight into today. And it all starts with the smallest of acts, making your bed. Yes, that simple ritual, often dismissed as trivial, can be the spark that changes the rhythm of everything that follows. Why does a neatly tucked blanket matter? Why does smoothing the wrinkles of your sheets carry any meaning at all? At first glance, it doesn't. But if you look closer, you'll see that this is not about the bed. It's about control, discipline, and identity. When you make your bed, you are declaring to yourself, I will not be ruled by chaos. I will not drift aimlessly. I will begin this day with an act of order. And that declaration is louder than you think. Picture this. You're in Navy SEAL training, exhausted, cold, bruised, and uncertain if you'll even make it through the week. You can't control the waves. You can't control the merciless instructors. You can't control the pain that seeps into your bones. But you can control one thing, your bed. Every corner sharp, every fold precise, every pillow aligned. That one task whispers to you, you still have the power to shape your world, even if it's just the space between four sheets. Now imagine carrying that same principle into everyday life. You wake up on a Monday morning, your head already buzzing with worries, emails, deadlines, bills, traffic. It feels overwhelming, almost unbearable. But then, before you let the noise consume you, you stop. You smooth the covers, adjust the pillow, pat down the edges, and suddenly, you have a win. A small win, yes, but a win nonetheless. You've completed a task before breakfast. You've proven to yourself that you can start and you can finish. That's the hidden secret. Momentum. Success is not always about giant leaps or dramatic victories. More often, it's about small steps, tiny acts that build upon each other until they carry you forward. Making your bed is step one. Once you've done that, maybe you wash the dishes instead of leaving them for later. Maybe you take 5 minutes to plan your day instead of rushing blindly. Maybe you choose a healthier breakfast. Each action layers onto the next, and suddenly you're moving with intention instead of drifting with chance. And here's the other truth. Not every day will be glorious. Some mornings, life will hit you hard. You'll face rejection, heartbreak, failure. You'll feel like nothing is in your control. But no matter how chaotic the storm outside becomes, you will come home to a bed that's made. It's waiting for you. It says, you did something right today. That little reminder may seem insignificant, but in your darkest hours, it can be the thread that holds you together. Think about children learning responsibility. Their parents don't ask them to make their beds because the sheets matter. They ask them because responsibility is built through practice. Each morning, the child learns consistency, learns pride in small accomplishments, learns that order can exist even in a messy world. These lessons, ingrained early, are the foundation of resilience later. Making your bed also teaches humility. It is not glamorous. No one applauds you for straightening your blanket. There is no medal, no promotion, no viral moment. It is a quiet, unseen act. But greatness is often born in the quiet. A disciplined person is not made by grand gestures, but by the daily choice to honor the small things. If you can be trusted with the small, you will eventually be trusted with the great. Consider the opposite. Leave your bed undone. Pile your sheets in a mess, toss your pillow aside, and walk away. You've already surrendered to disorder. It may seem harmless, but unconsciously, you've accepted that chaos is acceptable. You've told yourself that half done is enough. And that mindset, repeated day after day, bleeds into everything else: your work, your relationships, your dreams. So let me tell you this: start your day with victory, no matter how tiny it feels. The world may not notice, but you will. And that knowledge, that you chose discipline when it wasn't required, that you created order when it wasn't demanded, becomes fuel. It shapes your character, sharpens your resolve, and reminds you that control is not found in grand circumstances but in the little choices made quietly, consistently, faithfully. And one more thing: when you finish the day, when the hours have drained you and nothing seems to have gone as planned, when you feel defeated, your bed will be there. Clean, neat, ready. It will welcome you with dignity. It will remind you that no matter how hard the day was, you started strong. And tomorrow, you'll get another chance. So, begin here. Begin with the blanket, the sheets, the pillow. Begin with what is within your reach. If you want to change your life, start by making your bed. Because sometimes the smallest act at dawn can echo louder than the grandest speech at dusk. Chapter 2. You can't go it alone. Life has a way of testing us in ways we never expect. Challenges appear suddenly, storms roll in without warning, and no matter how strong or disciplined we are, there will always come a moment when we realize our strength alone is not enough. That is when the lesson becomes clear. You cannot go it alone. Think back to the hardest moment of your life. Maybe it was a time of loss, or failure, or deep uncertainty. Did you make it through only by your own willpower? Or was there someone, maybe a friend, a mentor, a partner, who stood beside you, offering encouragement, a helping hand, or simply a reminder that you were not facing the darkness by yourself? If you search your memory honestly, you'll find that in every great survival story, in every tale of perseverance, there is always a team. Always someone who helped carry the weight. This truth is at the heart of Navy SEAL training. During those grueling weeks, when exhaustion threatens to crush every ounce of spirit, the trainees are not alone. They are paired in boat crews, forced to row in unison, to run together, to suffer together. If one man falters, the others feel it. If one man pushes harder, the team surges forward. And this is no accident. It's a deliberate design. Because the instructors know, no single warrior can win the war. Victory belongs to the team. Now pause for a moment and bring that lesson into everyday life. Isn't it the same? In business, no company thrives because of one person alone. Behind every successful entrepreneur, there is a network: advisors, employees, customers, even family members providing emotional support. In sports, the greatest athletes still need coaches, teammates, fans. Even in art and writing, where creativity feels solitary, the work is shaped by editors, teachers, readers. The myth of the lone hero is romantic, but the reality is far more communal. Here's the thing: asking for help is not weakness. Depending on others does not make you less capable. It makes you human. And humans are wired for connection. We are meant to walk side by side, to share burdens, to exchange strengths. When we deny that truth, when we stubbornly try to do it all ourselves, we eventually break. But when we accept help, when we allow others into our journey, we discover something profound. Together, we can endure what would crush us alone. Imagine a person trying to climb a mountain alone. The wind is fierce, the slope unforgiving. They slip, they struggle, they doubt. Now imagine that same person with a partner tied by rope. Every step is still hard, but when they stumble, the rope catches them. When they lose hope, the partner reminds them why they started. That rope, that bond, can mean the difference between giving up and reaching the summit. Sometimes the people who lift us are not the ones we expect. A stranger who smiles at you when you feel invisible. A teacher who sees potential you don't yet recognize. A colleague who quietly supports you during a crisis. These moments may seem small, but they remind us of a larger truth. We rise higher when we rise together. And here's another side of the lesson. If you want others to help you, you must also be willing to help them. Relationships are not one-way streets. In SEAL training, when one man is too tired to carry the boat, the others lift more weight. Later, when their strength falters, he will do the same. That reciprocity builds trust, and trust is the glue that holds any team, any friendship, any family together. So ask yourself, who is rowing in your boat crew? Who are the people you lean on when life gets rough? And just as importantly, whose boat are you helping to row? Too often we imagine independence as the highest virtue, but in truth, interdependence is what keeps us alive, what makes life meaningful. Of course, not all partnerships are easy. People will fail you. Friends will disappoint you. Teams will fracture. That is part of the human story. But even with those risks, it is still better to walk with others than to march alone. Because in the end, the measure of a life is not only in what you achieved, but also in who you lifted along the way and who lifted you. When you reflect on this lesson, you can't go it alone. Remember that it is both practical and profound. Practical, because no major goal is ever reached in isolation. Profound, because it touches the deepest part of being human, the need to be seen, to be supported, to belong. So the next time you face a challenge that feels too heavy, don't be ashamed to reach out. Find your boat crew, your rope, your people. And when someone else stumbles, offer your strength to them. Because life's greatest victories are not solitary achievements. They are shared triumphs. And when the day comes that you look back on your journey, it won't be the medals, the titles, or the trophies that matter most. It will be the people who stood beside you and the battles you overcame together. That is the power of connection. That is the truth hidden in plain sight. You cannot go it alone. Chapter 3. Only the size of your heart matters. When people first hear about Navy SEAL training, they imagine towering athletes, muscles carved like stone, sprinting through the sand with effortless power. They assume that only giants, only the strongest and most intimidating figures, can possibly survive such brutal tests. But the truth is far different. In the grinder of that training ground, where every weakness is exposed and every ounce of energy drained, physical size matters less than most people believe. Out there, it is not the tallest, not the fastest, not even the most technically skilled who rise to the top. It is the ones with the biggest hearts. Let me paint you a picture. Among the ranks of trainees, there are always a few men who look small compared to the rest. Shorter, leaner, sometimes overlooked. They are often the ones people underestimate on day one. But as the days drag into weeks, something extraordinary happens. These so-called underdogs refuse to quit. They run until their legs nearly give out. They paddle until their hands blister and bleed. They crawl through the mud with grit written across their faces. They fall behind at times, yes, but they get up, they keep going, and when their teammates falter, they step forward with determination that belies their frame. And before long, it becomes clear. True strength is not measured in inches or pounds, but in willpower, resilience, and heart. Think about your own life. How often have you judged yourself, or been judged by others, based on appearances? Too young, too old, too small, too average. People love to measure worth in numbers: height, weight, grades, salaries. But the numbers don't tell the full story. What really counts is the fire inside you, the persistence that keeps you pushing when logic says stop, the courage to rise even after humiliation, the compassion that drives you to lift others when you yourself are barely standing. That is the size of your heart, and that is what shapes your destiny. Consider great leaders in history. Many were not the strongest or the most physically gifted. Gandhi was frail in body, yet his resolve brought down empires. Mother Teresa stood barely 5 feet tall, yet her compassion touched millions. Martin Luther King Jr. was not the wealthiest man in America, but his voice, powered by conviction, shook the conscience of a nation. None of these figures triumphed because of physical might. They triumphed because the size of their hearts could not be contained. This lesson is crucial because the world will constantly try to rank you, to place you in categories, to convince you that you are too small for your dreams. The world whispers, "Stay in your lane. Don't reach too far." But your heart knows better. Your heart knows that the limits placed on you are not absolute, that strength comes from within, and that resilience can make the impossible possible. Let me tell you about the small man in a large boat. During training, Boat crews are assigned tasks that require unity and raw endurance. Some crews are stacked with tall, broad-shouldered men who seem like natural powerhouses. Others are filled with smaller trainees who must stretch their paddles deeper into the water, who must run twice as fast to keep pace. On paper, the advantage lies with the bigger crew. Yet time and again, the smaller crews win races. Why? Because they refuse to let size define them. They row harder, they synchronize better, and they pour every ounce of determination into each stroke. Their hearts fuel their victory. In everyday life, we see this same principle. The student no one believed in graduates at the top of their class. The startup founded by an outsider disrupts entire industries. The person recovering from illness, once counted out, returns stronger than ever. These are not miracles. They are testaments to the size of the human heart. But here is the challenge. Heart cannot be seen at first glance. It reveals itself only under pressure. You don't truly know how strong you are until the storm comes, until the ground beneath you shakes, until you are pushed past what you thought was possible. That is when heart emerges, silent but undeniable. And often, it surprises even the person carrying it. So the next time you catch yourself doubting, thinking you are not enough, remember this lesson. You are not defined by the body you inhabit, the title you wear, or the statistics someone assigns you. You are defined by your capacity to endure, to love, to persist. And that capacity can grow endlessly if you nurture it. This also means we must learn not to underestimate others. Too often, society dismisses those who don't look the part, whether in business, sports, or even daily interactions. But greatness hides in unexpected places. The quiet coworker who never seeks the spotlight may be the one who carries the team in moments of crisis. The child who struggles in school may one day invent something extraordinary. The elderly neighbor you overlook may hold stories of courage that can inspire generations. Judging by appearances alone blinds us to the depth of human potential. Only the size of your heart matters, not the size of your body, not the size of your bank account, not the size of your resume. If your heart is large enough, large with resilience, large with compassion, large with faith, you will find the strength to carry yourself and others through any storm. And here's the final thought. One day, you will be measured. Not by the scale, not by the tape, not by the scoreboard, but by the imprint you leave on others. Did you lift people when they were down? Did you persist when others gave up? Did you love with courage, even when it hurt? Those are the true measurements, and they are written not on paper, but on the hearts of those whose lives you've touched. So, do not shrink yourself because the world says you are small. Do not count yourself out because the odds seem too great. Stand tall in the only way that matters. Let your heart speak for you. Because in the end, that is what endures. That is what makes you unstoppable. And that is the truth. Only the size of your heart matters. Chapter 4. Get over being a sugar cookie. Life is not fair. That's a hard truth, and one that most of us learn early, though we spend years resisting it. We want fairness. We crave balance. We expect rewards to match effort. But reality has other plans. Sometimes you work harder than anyone else and still get overlooked. Sometimes you play by the rules and still get punished. Sometimes you give your heart, and it gets broken anyway. In Navy SEAL training, they have a way of driving this lesson home. They call it the sugar cookie. Here's how it works. A trainee, after completing his physical training, is suddenly told by an instructor that he didn't meet the standard. Maybe he did everything right. Maybe he ran faster than anyone else. Maybe his push-ups were perfect. It doesn't matter. The instructor, with no explanation, tells him he failed. His punishment? To roll around in the wet sand until every inch of his body is covered in grit, then put his uniform back on and wear that sand, itching, chafing, miserable, for the rest of the day. That's what they call becoming a sugar cookie. And here's the catch. There is no appeal, no arguing, no way to prove yourself right. You can complain, you can curse the unfairness, but it won't change anything. The only choice is this: accept it and keep moving forward. Now, pause for a second. Isn't that exactly how life feels sometimes? You study for weeks, but the job goes to someone else. You put your whole heart into a relationship, but it ends without reason. You pour yourself into a project, but no one notices. You did everything right, and still you ended up in the sand, covered in grit, frustrated, angry, bitter. This is the moment that breaks many people, because unfairness cuts deep. We want cause and effect to line up neatly. If I work hard, I should succeed. If I am kind, people should be kind in return. But the world doesn't always operate on our equations. And if we cannot learn to accept this, if we cannot get over the sugar cookie, then life will grind us down. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone give up not because they lacked talent, not because they lacked discipline, but because they could not stomach the unfairness? They felt cheated, and so they quit. But quitting doesn't erase the unfairness. It only guarantees defeat. The real secret, the one SEAL training teaches, is resilience in the face of injustice. To learn how to get up, shake off the sand, and keep moving. To understand that life owes you nothing, and that your worth is not measured by how the world treats you, but by how you respond when the world treats you badly. I'll give you an example outside of the military. Imagine a young athlete who trains harder than anyone else on the team. He shows up early, leaves late, gives his best every day. But when the season begins, the coach benches him in favor of someone else. Maybe the decision was politics, maybe favoritism, maybe just bad luck. The young athlete has two choices: sulk, complain, let bitterness destroy his love for the game, or keep showing up, keep training, keep playing for the sheer joy of the sport, regardless of recognition. Which path leads to growth? Which path builds character? Or consider the entrepreneur who launches a business only to face setbacks beyond their control: a market crash, a supplier failure, an unfair competitor. They can rant about how unfair it all is, or they can adapt, learn, and build again. The unfairness doesn't disappear, but their response defines their future. The sugar cookie lesson is brutal, but it is liberating once you embrace it. Because once you stop demanding that life be fair, you stop being paralyzed by disappointment. You stop wasting energy on outrage. Instead, you focus on what you can control: your effort, your attitude, your persistence. And here's the beautiful twist. Those who endure the sugar cookies of life, those who accept the grit and keep going, often emerge stronger, tougher, and more compassionate. They learn empathy because they know what it feels like to be knocked down unfairly. They learn perseverance because they've practiced rising in the face of defeat. And they learn humility because they realize that nobody is immune from setbacks, no matter how perfect they try to be. So, what does this mean for you? It means that the next time life blindsides you with injustice, take a breath. Yes, feel the sting, because it will sting. Yes, acknowledge the frustration, because pretending it doesn't hurt is dishonest. But then, let it go. Don't let bitterness root itself in your heart. Don't let unfairness be the excuse that stops you. Instead, carry the sand with pride as proof that you can survive it. One day, when you look back, those moments will not define you as failure. They will define you as resilient. You will see that the sugar cookies were not obstacles meant to break you, but teachers meant to toughen you. And you will realize that the world's unfairness, though painful, was also the forge where your character was made. Remember this: fairness is a hope, not a guarantee. But perseverance is always within your reach. So, get over being a sugar cookie. Don't let injustice be the thing that stops you. Let it be the thing that sharpens you. Because life is unfair, yes, but you are stronger than unfairness. Chapter 5. Failure can make you stronger. Failure. It's a word that makes most of us uncomfortable. Nobody likes the sting of falling short, of trying and not succeeding, of being told we didn't make the cut. But here's the truth. Failure is not the end. Failure, in many ways, is the beginning. It is the fertile ground where resilience grows, where character is shaped, where lessons sink deeper than any success could ever teach. And that's exactly what Admiral McRaven highlights in this chapter. He wants us to see failure not as a stop sign, but as a detour sign, guiding us toward a different, sometimes stronger path. Think about it. When was the last time you failed at something important? Maybe it was a job interview that didn't go your way. Maybe it was a relationship that fell apart. Maybe it was a personal goal, losing weight, saving money, writing that book. And somewhere along the way, you stumbled. In that moment, it feels heavy. It feels personal, like maybe you're not good enough. But failure, if you let it, is simply feedback. It's the world saying, try again, adjust, grow. In Navy SEAL training, failure is a built-in feature, not a bug. The instructors design it that way. They push candidates beyond what they think is possible, knowing full well that most will stumble, that almost everyone will break at some point. And when you fail, there's a consequence. In McRaven's story, one such consequence is something called the circus. It's not the fun kind of circus with bright lights and popcorn. No, this circus is an extra 2-hour session of grueling physical punishment at the end of an already exhausting day. If you failed a test, a run, a swim, an obstacle course, you got sent to the circus. 2 extra hours of misery. 2 extra hours that broke down your body and challenged your mind. And here's the twist. The circus was meant to weed you out, but for those who endured it, for those who refused to quit, it actually made them stronger. After enough circuses, their bodies hardened, their endurance skyrocketed, their resilience sharpened. What was meant as punishment became preparation. What was meant to discourage, in fact, transformed them into warriors. Isn't that a metaphor for life? We all face circuses, setbacks, rejections, losses, and painful chapters we never asked for. But if we endure, if we stay in the game, we come out tougher, wiser, sharper. The failure doesn't define us. What defines us is how we respond. Now, let me share a thought here. Failure is often seen as the opposite of success. But what if, instead, failure is a stepping stone to success? What if it's the very ingredient that makes success taste sweeter? Imagine a world where you never failed. Everything came easy. No resistance. No struggle. Would success even feel like success? Or would it just feel empty, meaningless, taken for granted? I believe the setbacks, the disappointments, the bruises, those are the seasoning that make victory satisfying. And here's something else. Failure teaches humility. It reminds us that we're human, that we don't have it all figured out, that we need others. Success often breeds pride. Failure breeds perspective. When you've fallen flat on your face, you tend to appreciate the ground you're walking on a little more. You start valuing the small wins. You begin to empathize with others who are struggling. Failure connects us to our humanity. But let's be real. Failing hurts. It stings in the moment. There's no denying that. The trick is not to deny the pain, but to see past it. To know that the sting is temporary, but the strength you build is lasting. Every rejection letter, every missed opportunity, every botched attempt, they're chiseling away the weaker parts of you, leaving behind someone leaner, tougher, more refined. So, what do we do with this lesson? First, we stop running from failure. We stop fearing it like it's a monster in the closet. Failure is not a monster. It's a mentor. It's the tough love coach that shouts at you, pushes you harder, and refuses to let you settle for mediocrity. Second, we embrace the circus. When life piles on extra weight, extra challenges, extra pain, instead of saying, "Why me?" we can start saying, "Train me. Let this shape me. Let this stretch me. Let this prepare me for what's next." I want to leave you with a mental image. Picture a blacksmith hammering a piece of iron in a fiery forge. With every strike, sparks fly. The blows seem violent, harsh, even destructive. But what's happening? That iron is being shaped, strengthened, transformed into something sharp, durable, and useful. Failure is the hammer. The fire is life's trials. And you are the blade being forged. Without the hammer, without the fire, you remain soft metal. With them, you become something unbreakable. So here's the takeaway from Chapter 5. Failure is not fatal. Failure is formative. Don't run from it. Don't fear it. Lean into it. Let it teach you. Let it toughen you. Because when life sends you to the circus, and it will, The question is not whether you'll suffer. The question is whether you'll endure, whether you'll rise, whether you'll walk out stronger on the other side. And if you do, if you can take the hits and keep moving, you'll discover something remarkable. Failure didn't weaken you. It forged you. By the way, if you're enjoying this summary, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Chapter 6. You must dare greatly. Life rewards the brave. That's the unshakable truth sitting at the heart of this chapter. Admiral McRaven wants us to remember that if we want a life that matters, a life that leaves a mark, we cannot tiptoe quietly around fear. We must dare greatly. We must take risks. We must be willing to step into the unknown, knowing we might stumble, but also knowing we might soar. Let me paint the picture for you. In SEAL training, one of the most daunting tasks is the night swim. Imagine it, a vast, dark ocean stretching endlessly, the water cold and uninviting, and beneath you, the mysteries of the deep. Sharks. Yes, actual sharks. Instructors warn you, you'll likely encounter them. Don't panic. Don't thrash. Don't flee. If a shark circles you, hold your ground. And if it attacks, stand your ground even firmer. Punch it in the snout. Think about that. You're not told to avoid the shark or to swim away. You're told to fight, to dare greatly in the face of primal fear. Now, most of us may never face a shark in the literal sense, but let's be honest, we all have sharks in our lives. The risk of failure, the fear of embarrassment, the possibility of rejection, the unknown future. They circle us in our minds just as real sharks circle swimmers in the water. And too often, we let that fear paralyze us. We stay on shore. We don't dive in. We tell ourselves, it's too dangerous. It's too uncertain. What if it goes wrong? But here's the thing. What if it goes right? What if the very thing you're afraid of becomes the path to your greatest growth? Taking risks doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean jumping blindly without preparation. It means acknowledging the fear, recognizing the danger, but choosing to move forward anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in spite of fear. The SEALs know this. That's why the night swim exists, to train warriors to act when their instincts scream run. Think about your own life. How many dreams have you tucked away in the back of your mind because you were too afraid to chase them? How many conversations have you avoided? How many opportunities have you passed on because you worried about the outcome? What if instead you leaned into the risk? What if you decided that daring greatly was better than living small? History is full of people who dared, explorers who set sail into uncharted waters, inventors who risked ridicule with crazy ideas, leaders who stood up against impossible odds. None of them had guarantees. All of them faced sharks of their own. But they dared. And because they dared, the world changed. Now, let me add a personal reflection here. Playing it safe often feels comfortable, even responsible. But comfort zones are cages disguised as cozy homes. They keep you warm, sure, but they also keep you trapped. Real growth begins the moment you step outside that cage. Yes, it's colder out there, windier, scarier, but it's also freer. That's where the magic happens. Here's something else to remember. Daring greatly doesn't have to mean grand, world-changing actions. Sometimes, it's small but deeply personal. Daring to say, I love you first. Daring to apply for that job you feel underqualified for. Daring to share your art, your writing, your voice with the world. These acts may seem small, but they require the same courage as facing a shark in the deep ocean. And yes, you might fail. You might get rejected. You might stumble in front of others. But here's the truth. The pain of failure is temporary, but the regret of never trying is permanent. 10 years from now, you'll care less about the mistakes you made and more about the chances you never took. Admiral McRaven's message is clear. Life is risky. The ocean is full of sharks. But if you want to live fully, you must dive in anyway. You must dare to face the darkness, to swim through uncertainty, to confront the things that scare you most. Let me give you an image to hold on to. Picture a cliff overlooking a wide valley. You stand at the edge, heart pounding, looking at the leap you must take. Behind you is safety, but also stagnation. Ahead of you is risk, but also possibility. The leap is terrifying. But what if you spread your wings? What if you discover you can fly? That's the essence of daring greatly. It's not about guaranteeing success. It's about choosing courage over comfort, choosing growth over safety, choosing a meaningful life over a small one. So here's the takeaway from Chapter 6. Don't let the sharks of fear keep you from diving in. Don't let the darkness of uncertainty stop you from moving forward. When the moment comes, and it will, dare greatly. Because a life lived cautiously is often a life half-lived. But a life lived with courage, even with scars, is a life fully embraced. Chapter 7. Stand up to the bullies. Bullies come in many shapes and forms. Some are obvious. The loud, aggressive ones who push you around, who bark orders, who try to make you feel small. Others are subtle, the ones who whisper doubts into your ear, who use fear, intimidation, or manipulation to control you. And then, of course, there are the inner bullies, the voices in your own head that tell you, you can't do it, you're not enough, just give up. Admiral McRaven, in this chapter, reminds us of a timeless lesson. Bullies don't back down when you shrink away. They back down when you stand tall. In Navy SEAL training, one of the most terrifying obstacles is a long swim into shark-infested waters. Earlier, we talked about how trainees are taught not to panic if they encounter a shark. But here, McRaven goes further. He explains that you must never, ever let a shark intimidate you. If it circles closer, if it threatens, you don't retreat. You punch it in the snout. You let it know that you will not be its prey. That single act of defiance changes the balance of power. The shark, sensing your strength, backs off. Now think about the bullies in your own life. They may not have fins or sharp teeth, but they thrive on the same thing: fear. A bully's power comes from convincing you that you're weaker, that you don't stand a chance, that resistance is pointless. The moment you show fear, they win. But the moment you push back, the moment you draw a line, you shift the balance. The bully realizes you're not an easy target, and often that's enough to make them retreat. Here's something I've noticed. Bullies rarely pick on the strong. They pick on those who seem vulnerable, those who appear isolated, those who are silent. That's why standing up isn't just about courage. It's about reclaiming your dignity. It's about saying, not today, not me. I won't let you diminish me. And the surprising part? The act of standing up often inspires others to do the same. Courage is contagious. When one person resists, it gives permission for others to resist as well. Of course, standing up to bullies is not easy. It comes with risk. You might face backlash. You might face greater resistance at first. Bullies don't always walk away quietly. But here's the question. What's the alternative? Living in silence, in fear, in submission? That's not really living. That's surviving. And you deserve more than just survival. Let me give you a broader perspective. Bullies aren't just individuals. Sometimes they're systems. Institutions that oppress, cultures that discriminate, situations that keep people trapped. And history shows us that progress has always come from people brave enough to confront those bullies. Civil rights leaders, reformers, everyday citizens who refused to stay silent. They faced enormous risks: jail, violence, rejection. But by standing up, they shifted the course of history. And yes, sometimes the bully is inside you. That quiet but persistent voice that tells you, don't try, don't hope, don't dream, stay small. I'd argue this might be the toughest bully of all, because you can't run away from it. It lives in your own head. But the solution is the same. You must confront it. You must counter those lies with truth. You must say out loud, even if your voice trembles, I am capable. I am worthy. I will not be held back by fear. There's a story McRaven tells about a group of SEAL trainees who had to paddle their small boats through rough waters at night. The waves were high, the winds fierce, and the shoreline seemed impossibly far. Fear whispered that they wouldn't make it. But they pressed on. Together, stroke by stroke, they silenced the voice of fear. They reached the shore, proving that bullies, whether waves, sharks, or inner doubts, only win if you give up. So what can we learn here? First, Recognize that bullies exist. Don't pretend otherwise. Denial only gives them more power. Second, prepare yourself. Build resilience, sharpen your skills, strengthen your mind. The more prepared you are, the less intimidating the bully becomes. And third, when the moment comes, take a stand, maybe with words, maybe with action, maybe simply by refusing to bow down. I'll share an image with you. Picture a child on a playground, surrounded by bigger kids who mock and shove. At first, he hangs his head, hoping it will stop. But it doesn't. Then, one day, he looks up, meets the bully's eyes, and says firmly, "No more." In that instant, the dynamic changes. The bully may still be bigger, louder, stronger, but the child has found his voice. And once you find your voice, once you decide to stand, no one can take that away. Here's the truth. Life will always have bullies. People, circumstances, even your own doubts. But every time you stand up, every time you face them head on, you grow taller inside. You prove to yourself and to the world that you cannot be crushed, and that strength stays with you forever. So, the takeaway from Chapter 7 is this. Never let bullies dictate your life. Never let fear silence your spirit. Stand tall. Push back. Because when you do, you don't just protect yourself. You light a fire of courage that others can follow. And that fire, once lit, can burn bright enough to drive back the darkest of bullies. Chapter 8. Rise to the occasion. Life has a way of testing us at the most inconvenient times. You're cruising along, handling the usual ups and downs, when suddenly, bam, a crisis strikes. Maybe it's a health emergency, maybe it's a financial disaster, maybe it's a family tragedy. And in that moment, the world seems to hold its breath, waiting to see how you'll respond. This is what Admiral McRaven calls rising to the occasion. It's the ability to dig deep when everything around you is falling apart, to stand strong when others collapse, to show courage when fear is the easier option. During SEAL training, there's a notorious exercise called the slide for life. Picture this. A high tower, a long rope stretched across a body of water, and trainees forced to crawl hand over hand, suspended high above, with the wind whipping against their bodies. It's dangerous. It's exhausting. And it's deliberately designed to simulate the high-stakes moments of combat, where failure isn't just uncomfortable, it could be fatal. In those moments, hesitation is deadly. Panic is deadly. Only calm, focused determination will see you through. That's what rising to the occasion means, refusing to break when the pressure is at its highest. But let's bring this down to everyday life. Most of us won't be dangling from ropes above the ocean, but we will face moments that feel just as terrifying. The call from the doctor with bad news, the sudden layoff notice from your boss, the phone call in the middle of the night that changes everything. In those moments, you don't get to prepare. You don't get to warm up. You're simply thrust into the crisis, and the question is, will you collapse or will you rise? Here's the good news. Rising to the occasion is not about superhuman strength. It's about training. Just like the SEALs rehearse over and over until their reactions become automatic, we can train ourselves in resilience. Every time you push through a difficult workout, every time you face a tough conversation instead of avoiding it, every time you keep your cool under stress, you're building the muscles you'll need for those high-pressure moments. Think of it as a personal reserve of strength. When the crisis hits, you draw from that reserve. And here's another truth. Rising to the occasion isn't just about you. It's about the people who look to you when they're afraid. Leadership, in its purest form, often happens in the darkest moments. When others are panicking, your calm becomes their anchor. When others feel hopeless, your determination becomes their spark. You may not even realize it, but your response can shape the outcome for everyone around you. That's a powerful responsibility, but also a powerful opportunity. Now let me share something personal. I think rising to the occasion often looks quieter than we imagine. We picture heroes charging into burning buildings, soldiers braving gunfire, doctors performing miracles. And yes, those are real examples. But rising to the occasion can also look like the single mom who works 3 jobs to keep her kids fed. The student who pushes through fear to give a speech that could change her future. The elderly man who faces illness with dignity, refusing to let it define him. These moments may not make headlines, but they are every bit as heroic. Of course, rising to the occasion comes with risk. You might fail, you might stumble. But here's the paradox. The act of stepping up, even imperfectly, is itself a victory. Because the opposite, shrinking back, doing nothing, letting fear rule, guarantees defeat. Courage, even in failure, leaves you stronger. Cowardice leaves you hollow. McRaven's lesson here is clear. Life will throw you into situations where you feel overwhelmed, unprepared, maybe even terrified. But you are stronger than you know. You are more capable than you realize. And sometimes, it takes a crisis to reveal that strength. I want you to imagine a candle in a dark room. At first, it seems small, fragile, vulnerable to the slightest breeze. But in the pitch black, that tiny flame suddenly becomes powerful. It lights the way. It brings comfort. It changes the atmosphere. That's what rising to the occasion is like. Your light may feel small, but in the darkest moment, it can shine brighter than you ever believed possible. So what does this mean for us, practically? It means we don't wait for crises to decide who we want to be. We train daily. We practice resilience in small ways so that when the big tests come, we're ready. It means we embrace responsibility, not avoid it. And it means we choose courage over fear, even when we don't feel ready. Especially when we don't feel ready. Because here's the ultimate truth of Chapter 8. When life puts you on the spot, when the pressure is suffocating and the stakes are sky high, you have two options. You can crumble or you can rise. And if you choose to rise, if you choose to meet the challenge head on, you not only survive the moment, you transform because of it. You walk away stronger, braver, more alive than before. So, when your moment comes, and it will, remember this. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to rise. Chapter 9. Give people hope. Hope. Such a small word, yet it carries the weight of survival, of courage, of endurance. Hope is what keeps people moving forward when every logical reason says to stop. It's the spark in the dark, the hand that pulls you out of despair, the quiet voice that whispers, "Tomorrow can be better than today." Admiral McRaven dedicates this chapter to the power of hope, and how offering even a glimmer of it can change someone's life. During SEAL training, one of the hardest exercises is Hell Week. It's exactly what it sounds like. 5.5 days of non-stop physical and mental punishment. Little to no sleep, endless miles of running, freezing swims, constant drills. Many quit. Some because of exhaustion, some because of injury, but most because they lose hope. They can't see the finish line. They can't believe they'll make it through. And then something remarkable happens. Sometimes, all it takes is a single voice, a single act, to rekindle that hope. McRaven recalls a moment when the trainees were ordered to spend the night in the mudflats, cold, wet, and sinking into the muck. The instructors made it worse by telling them they'd be there all night unless enough men quit. As the hours dragged on, shivers turned to convulsions, and despair spread like wildfire. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, one trainee began to sing, off-key, broken, but brave, and slowly, others joined in. Their voices grew louder, rising above the mud, the cold, the fear. In that moment, the mud was still there, the misery was still real, but hope returned. And with hope, they endured. That's the lesson. Sometimes hope doesn't erase the hardship, but it makes the hardship bearable. Sometimes it doesn't remove the obstacle, but it gives you the strength to climb it. And here's the key. Hope is contagious. One spark can light 1,000 candles. One voice can lift a crowd. Think about your own life. Have you ever been in a season where you felt stuck in the mud, figuratively speaking? Maybe debt weighed on you, or grief, or loneliness. And then someone, a friend, a teacher, a stranger even, spoke words that reminded you that you weren't alone, that things could get better. That's the power of hope. It doesn't solve everything instantly, but it changes the way you carry the burden. And here's something important. Giving hope is not about false promises. It's not about sugarcoating reality or pretending things are easy. Real hope acknowledges the pain, the struggle, the difficulty, but points to the possibility beyond it. It says, yes, this is hard, but you are not finished. There is more ahead. You are stronger than you know. I'll share a reflection here. In times of crisis, people don't always need solutions right away. Sometimes what they need most is simply someone who believes in them, someone who sees light when they only see darkness. Leaders understand this. Parents understand this. Friends who truly care understand this. To give hope is to offer a lifeline when someone is drowning. And don't underestimate small gestures. A smile, a kind word, a text message that says, "I'm here for you." These can feel insignificant to you, but to someone else, they can be the very thing that keeps them holding on. Remember, the man singing in the mudflats didn't deliver a speech, didn't solve the situation. He just sang. Simple, raw, human. And it changed everything. Of course, hope also lives inside us. It's not only something we give to others, it's something we must cultivate within ourselves. When failure, rejection, or tragedy strikes, hope is what keeps us from giving up. It's the belief that storms pass, that wounds heal, that dawn follows night. Without hope, even the strongest person will eventually break. With hope, even the weakest can endure. History proves this over and over. Prisoners of war who survived years of captivity clung to hope. Civil rights leaders marching in the face of brutality carried hope in their hearts. Survivors of disasters, illness, and loss often say the same thing. Hope is what got them through. It is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. So what does this mean for us? It means we must take seriously our responsibility to be hope givers. In our families, in our workplaces, in our communities, we can choose to be the voice that says, "Don't give up." We can choose to be the person who sings in the mud when everyone else is silent. And in doing so, we not only help others endure, we strengthen ourselves. Because hope, once shared, grows stronger in both the giver and the receiver. Here's an image for you. Imagine walking through a tunnel, pitch black, endless. You stumble, you trip, you wonder if it ever ends. Then, far in the distance, you see a faint light. It's small, barely visible, but it changes everything. Suddenly, you have a direction. You have a reason to keep moving. That light is hope. And you, yes, you, have the ability to be that light for someone else. So, the takeaway from Chapter 9 is this. Never underestimate the power of hope. Give it freely. Share it generously. Because you never know, your simple act, your small gesture, your song in the mud, might be the very thing that helps someone else survive their darkest night. Chapter 10. Never, ever quit. If there is one lesson that threads through every story, every hardship, every victory Admiral McRaven shares, it is this. Never, ever quit. From the very first day of SEAL training, the instructors make one thing clear. If you want to quit, it's easy. All you have to do is walk over to the bell hanging in the center of the compound and ring it. That's it. 3 little chimes, and you're done. No more cold water, no more 4 a.m. runs, no more carrying boats on your head until your neck feels like it's breaking. Ring the bell, and the pain ends. And every year, men ring that bell. Some on day 1, some after weeks of suffering, some just hours away from graduation. For them, the pain is too much, the exhaustion too great, the mental fight too overwhelming. They step away, and that is their choice. But for those who don't quit, who resist the siren call of relief, a different future awaits. McRaven explains that life is full of bells begging us to ring them. Quit your dream when it's hard. Quit the relationship when it gets messy. Quit the job when it tests your patience. Quit on yourself when you fall short. The bells are everywhere, and yet, if we choose not to ring them, if we choose to endure, we find something extraordinary on the other side. Quitting is seductive because it offers instant relief. Endurance, on the other hand, offers something slower but far more valuable: growth, resilience, victory. The greatest achievements in life are never handed out freely. They are earned through persistence when the body screams to stop, when the world seems against you, when success feels impossible. Let's return to SEAL training one last time. McRaven recalls watching men stumble under the weight of exhaustion, only to somehow stand back up and keep going. Not because they weren't hurting, they were. Not because they weren't scared, they were terrified. But because they refused to quit. And in that refusal, they discovered strength they didn't know they had. This is true for all of us. Every human being will face trials, a diagnosis that shakes us, a loss that breaks us, a dream that crumbles. In those moments, quitting whispers sweetly, "It's easier if you stop." But if we push forward, even step by small step, we find that we can carry more than we ever imagined. Think of every story of triumph you admire. Athletes who overcame defeat, leaders who survived exile, scientists who faced rejection after rejection before discovery. None of them succeeded because life was easy. They succeeded because they refused to give up. And here's something critical. Refusing to quit doesn't mean you never fail. Failure is inevitable. You will fall, you will lose, you will make mistakes. The point is not to avoid falling. The point is to keep getting up. To stand again, bloodied but unbroken, and say, "I am not done." McRaven puts it this way: life is a struggle, and the potential for failure is ever present. But those who live fearlessly, who refuse to quit, will find that their life will be full and meaningful. As we close this journey through Make Your Bed, think about the 10 lessons. They all point toward this last one. Making your bed each morning is about discipline, but it's also about refusing to quit on the little things. Facing the circus is about refusing to let failure define you. Singing in the mud is about refusing to surrender to despair. And here, at the end, McRaven leaves us with the most important charge. Never, ever quit on yourself, on your values, on your mission in life. So what does this look like in your own story? Maybe it means holding on through a season of doubt, trusting that growth is happening even when you can't see it. Maybe it means getting up tomorrow and trying again, even after you failed today. Maybe it means choosing to keep fighting for your dream when others have stopped believing in you. You may not be a Navy SEAL, you may never face Hell Week or ring that bell, but you will face your own battles. You will stand before your own bells, those tempting chances to give up. And in those moments, remember this: greatness lies not in never stumbling, but in never surrendering. One final image. Picture yourself years from now, looking back on today. What will you remember? The times you quit, or the times you pressed forward? The times you rang the bell, or the times you silenced it with courage? Every decision to keep going builds a legacy, not just of success, but of character, of resilience, of strength. So as Admiral McRaven would say, if you want to change the world, never, ever quit. So here we are. We've walked together through 10 powerful lessons. At first glance, they seemed simple. Make your bed, face the circus, paddle as one, sing in the mud, measure a person by their heart, rise to the occasion, confront the sharks, stay calm in the darkest moments, be ready to stand tall, and above all, never, ever quit. But look deeper, and you'll see these aren't just rules from Navy SEAL training. They are principles for life itself. They remind us that discipline builds momentum, that setbacks can sharpen us, that unity carries us further than pride. They show us that humor can survive even in mud and misery, that courage isn't about size or strength, but about heart. They teach us that pressure reveals who we really are, that fear can be confronted, that calmness can carry us through storms. And finally, they anchor us with this truth: success belongs to those who refuse to quit. If you take nothing else from this journey, take this: small choices matter. Every little act of discipline, every decision to keep going, every refusal to give up, all of them add up. They shape your future, they shape your character, they shape the world around you. And now, it's your turn. The lessons are here, but they only come alive when you live them. So tomorrow morning, when you rise, remember the very first one. Make your bed. Start with something small. and let that small step ripple into something extraordinary. Before we close, I want to thank you for spending this time with me, reflecting on Admiral McRaven's timeless words. If you felt inspired, if even one story here sparked something inside you, I invite you to join us again. Subscribe to MindSpark Summaries, where we explore books, ideas, and stories that don't just inform, they transform. Because your journey doesn't end here. This is only the beginning. So go on. Make your bed. Face your battles. Keep going and never ever quit.